So clearly, this is a small group, so feel free to stop and ask any questions. And we've already had some discussions already, Jess, before you got here. So go ahead and get started, I guess. So just a little bit about my journey, first of all. I started college. I decided I wanted to do math, computer science, and secondary education. And then I got done with student teaching and decided that all the kids looked about my age and they were all taller than me. So I decided to go to work at the local bank and where I had been working. And became the IT officer there. I did all things IT, a little bit of everything. From there, we were being audited and examined and things on a regular basis. Security was more and more important to everybody, and so I went looking for a banking IT certificate. So I found one online, started that, and then I decided it was kind of fun to learn more about cybersecurity. So I decided to go on to the grad school part of it, which was just a couple more classes, or 8 more classes I think it was. And in the middle of that, I ended up switching into a larger company with a cybersecurity specific role. IT security analyst role, which Jess is now. I finished up my master's in cyber defense and also did my CISSP while I was there. So a little bit of everything on the way, and I run a lot. So being on a journey and is pretty common for runners. We do the marathons and all the other types of trail events are fun to do, so kind of made sense to make this a little bit of a theme of a journey. So IMEG was I think that's a little too loud.
Okay, sorry. It just seemed really quiet.
It might be. That's okay. So IMEG is a new place, and corporate culture was something to get used to there, as Jess knows. It was difference from a bank to a professional services company, AEC, engineering consulting company. The people there, they're a lot more sophisticated on a regular basis. They can get into more trouble easily. They know just enough to be dangerous security or computer-wise. And lots of people like to have lots of free reign in those types of companies. You don't have that regulations that you have at like a bank or healthcare. Bigger company, lots of new tools, lots of fun. Of course, when we got there, I started the security group, so we had to assess risks, develop policies, all that fun basic stuff. Then we got this new requirement. We started doing work with the DoD. And we got wind of, now it's CMMC, but at the time it was the DFARS requirements. So the DFARS requirements had you looking at NIST 800-171. And then they started getting the newer versions of the CMMC level 1. And we got to do lots of investigation. So CUI is controlled unclassified information. It is not a classification, so it's not classified or high level or top secret. You don't have to have any of that type of certification. It's just a designation. So all of the information that's called CUI is designated as CUI. Version 2.0 was released in 2021, but it's still in the rulemaking process. So once it gets out of the rulemaking process, it'll actually be included in contracts, so you'll have to actually comply with it. Changes from the version 1, if you had looked at CMMC ever before, the original one had actually 5 levels, and then they simplified it down to 3, which makes a lot more sense. Level 1 is kind of focused on that FCI, the federal contract information. Level 2 is where CUI would be, and level 3, I'm not even sure if they've really defined that, but that's going to be your higher level security. So, like any good student, I started researching, which you found out a little bit about that. I also went on a journey to do an internal gap analysis. Most of CMMC is based on the NIST 800-171. So I did a comparison between where our controls were and the NIST 800-171. Looking at those, I also realized that we probably needed some experts, some people that have been there before. So I went with a company that had a seminar, kind of a working seminar, and it was really helpful to sit down with other people that had been through the process and other people that were going through the process at the same time. They had good working sessions down there for a couple days. They also had a tool that we could use to actually track the compliance with the CMMC, or the time was the NIST 800-171. So that was also super helpful to figure out where we're at. We still kind of had to figure out what we wanted to do. So we had to navigate the terrain. So looking at our company, we had to look at the amount of affected work. How much work were we doing that actually had CUI in it? Were we doing, 10% of our work was CUI, or were we doing 100% of our work as CUI? We had to look at our technology environment. Are we cloud focused? Are we on-prem? Are we a hybrid? What are our devices that we have? Can they become compliant? One of the big things in the NIST 800-171 is being FIPS 140-2 compliant, or certified, I think it is, right terminology. So your software or your programs or your devices have to have that certification for that encryption level. So we had to look to see if we could do that. Was that going to be a cost of hundreds of $1,000s, or was that going to be an easy fix of, $20? Corporate culture. So when I started at IMEG, it was very different from the banking industry. That was everything was locked down, and you had to have a lot more hoops to jump through, and audits and exams. Could we actually lock down all the systems that we wanted to lock down and not have a revolt from the employees? Or having the CEO call you and say, hey, we can't function as a business doing this. So our business goals, can we sustain a lockdown environment with our business goals? We also need to look at our business goals and see where are we going with this CUI information and the Department of Defense work. Are we going to grow our work in that industry, or are we just trying to meet a few projects that need this information protected? One of the biggest goals, or not biggest goals, but biggest struggles we've been having is determining what is CUI. So CUI is defined in the government. They have registries that you can look up, and a CUI should actually be marked by the federal government. They're the only ones that can actually mark that CUI. But when you get a contract, you can in your contract, you might have to mark something else, some work product, as CUI. What we were finding is that our partners and other people we were working with were actually marking that more things CUI than were CUI. So CUI cannot be something that you can go on the internet and find legitimately. So if I can go to Google Maps and look at a picture of a building, that picture of the building isn't CUI because you can see it in the public. So you can go to that building and see it. So that wouldn't be CUI. So people were kind of overly marking CUI, and there wasn't a good consensus of what needed to be marked as CUI. So you might have a project that you're working on that's got 100 pages in their proposal, where only one document in that whole 100-page thing was actually CUI. So you could share everything else in that 100 pages, that 99 pages, except for that one document. So that was one of the other challenges we've been finding. So what can we do? We have several paths we can take. We can, if we have very few government projects, we could just say no. We don't want to deal with the government projects and say no. We can turn down that government work. Obviously, there's going to be a hit to that. You're going to lose projects. We could lock down the whole environment. So everybody's computers could be locked down. We could whitelist every single web page someone goes to. We can put all of those controls into place. Or we could do what was called an enclave. So we can create that enclave for secure data, kind of segment it off as kind of the previous terms, but you can create a certain place for that information. So cloud doesn't usually play very nicely with the NIST 800-171. I'm sure there's ways to restrict it and lock it down, but there's methods that you could actually have it not in the cloud per se, or at least not in the public cloud. So you have to pick and follow a path. So we chose, at least initially, to do an enclave solution. And you could house an enclave solution, internally. You could have an office and have everybody come into that room and kind of like the old school mainframe type of deal, and everybody works in that secure location. You can also outsource. There's companies offering this type of enclave environment. It keeps the secure data separate. Has lots of benefits of, everything that is being taken care of for all the controls that you need that are technical. However, you still have the policy controls, the procedures, and the physical security that are part of CMMC that you have to handle. So another great way is to say, we're not printing documents anymore. We don't have to print CMMC documents. And then you've eliminated your physical security, some of the physical security as well. That's kind of helpful. I know I had one more thing on that, but it has escaped me. So once you've gotten into a solution, you've got a path that you're following, you might need to reorient every once in a while. You're going to go back and check the terrain again. What's your company doing? Are they trying to get more work? Are they getting more of that CUI? Has anything else changed? So you're going to check the map again. Are we following the government's requirements? We're going to have to get that certified at some point. Right now we haven't done the certification piece because it's not a requirement yet, and there is a fairly significant cost to the certification, or at least initially. It'll probably come down as we wait. In the meantime, we just have all the controls in place that we need. We're going to pick a new path if we need to. So if we have the enclave environment and it is all hosted outsourced and we have so many people coming onto it, we might switch to a hosted internal type of enclave. We can look at the technologies as things become certified with the government. They've been talking about certifying FedRAMP type things. Maybe that will become part of CMMC. Right now it's not really, there's nothing tying the two together, but that could be something coming down the path. So you could look at FedRAMP certified cloud applications and use those as part of your CMMC trail. So that is mostly what I have to share, but what I'm most curious to know is, what are your experiences? Is anybody else on a CMMC journey? If so, what are your challenges? Have you chosen a path?
How much time do we have?
Well, I tried to make this actually short because I was hoping we would have people that would want to kind of discuss that part. Because it is something that I found hard to actually get that network of people that are on the same journey. You kind of get stuck in there, and then you're just dealing with yourself, and you're dealing with vendors and the government that doesn't really have a good solution yet. So what are you working on? Are you?
So I work for a privately owned mediation
That kind of brings up the one part I think that I skipped over, and that was one of the ones I was trying to remember, is actually the processes that you were working on. So you two different companies have two different processes with what they're doing. We're a pretty large company. We've been doing a lot of M&A, and we actually do have different companies that we're bringing in that are working with NIST, and they're doing different methods of handling it. So one of them is a pretty small one that we're bringing in that didn't have the enclave, and they're going into the enclave, and that's been a challenge for them to develop their process on how each team is going to handle that. So we've provided in IT the technical procedure or technical capabilities for them to protect that data, but they have to figure out how are they going to handle that process. How are they going to look at that CUI and determine is it really CUI, or reach back out and clarify if it's CUI or not? Right.
And it turns out that they flagged, it was, instead of requirements, there was a word specifications. And they flagged it CUI because a specification is CUI. But what was really meant was requirements, so we have to go back to them. And that's 3 times that we had to go to them and say, you're using the process wrong. Is that common? Do people see that?
I think so. Yeah. 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 Yeah, we've a lot of ours are not direct from the government. They're from another prime, so they're getting it from there, and then it's coming to us, and it's the same thing. So, yeah.
I got this feeling that they're going to be less secure because
Yeah.
it exists.
Yeah.
The intent was supposed to align things across government agencies, but you have everybody running this problem, dealing with agencies in this market, but still, because the classifications that they were doing was you'll have 3-letter agencies or R some CSS stuff. In reality, it's not. You'll have the DoD agency doing secret CSS, same thing. So it's like, okay, look, we don't need everything at that level, but we don't want to have the populace, so cool. But of course, still up to the same.
I feel like we needed like an official CUI support group.
Yes. And that's actually something that if anybody's willing to share names around, I'm happy to share mine and get together with things. So.
And I've done the RFP prepping for the CCP, while also getting my own organization ready for the CMMC. But I'm also in DoD, so I've experienced some of this.
You have the inside track then.
To a point, I mean, I've been on the town halls, and so I know that part of the issue with the government shutdown, they're looking at that potentially pushing things back again, depending on how long. Well, of course they did the CR, which is what we've been waiting for the last 10 plus years. It's now just CRs. But once that expires in the next 45 days, okay, will they have everything resolved by then or not? So it'll probably push back again.
I haven't, and I'm gonna say the reason I haven't looked into that one much is because our technological part is being hosted by that third-party enclave. So they would actually be doing that pen test type of thing and certifying to us that it's done. It hasn't been assessed before. I don't know if they've had any assessments done against them for the actual CMMC, but they're meeting that requirement for us. I don't know if either of you guys have checked into that.
One thing to keep in mind is that vulnerability and a pen test are somewhat different. And I think that some people say vulnerability assessment, and so that's why they want to just get a vulnerability scan versus a penetration test, which would also include a vulnerability scan. Because typically you're going to scan the environment, see if there's a vulnerability, and use that as part of your pen testing to get into an environment. So I don't remember seeing anything more specific, and I was just looking at it earlier. And there's a, you can, should be able to download the self-assessment guide. There's one for level 1 and level 2. And you would probably want to check out Mara.
Yeah, the other,
Another location.
yeah, and the other thing to keep in mind is that you can scope where your CUI is. So you wouldn't necessarily have to do it across the whole environment if you are saying our CUI is only in this part of our environment. So that can help you limit the scope and possibly the cost of any pen or vulnerability tests. Yep.
I'd say the first step is do as much as you can yourself.
Mm-hmm.
Find an RP or an RPA. And then, because that'll help you with getting everything that you might miss. But as long as you have all your documentation together and say, look, these are all the things we did, are we missing something? Because their job is to help you prep for the CMMC assessment. And then that's when you find the OSC to help you with, you'll be the OSC, to find the C3PO who will then do your assessment. And the first thing that lead assessor is supposed to do is basically make sure your stuff's all together that you're ready to test before you can go down that route.
Mm-hmm. Any other thoughts or questions?
What do you think's a heavier lift, FedRAMP or CMMC?
I don't know much about FedRAMP. I mean, I know it exists in things, but we haven't had to use it in our case or, look for it.
Yeah. Whereas CMMC is more directly tied to CUI.
Mm-hmm.
CMMC is so another question came up is if someone can use the FedRAMP certification to as like the attestation for their CMMC, and so far they said no. I can't really tell you anything further than the details, but if you're an organization similar to CAC that works, that's basically using like an Azure cloud instance, and you're not doing physical crime, then you're pretty much protected in route. Because I mean, you can set up your environment to where it's your cloud application, and you're not throwing things out based on your definition. So, good question. I'm not sure I can answer that.
Yeah, I would assume it'd be kind of similar if you're a cloud-based company and all your CUIs on the cloud. I could think starting to fly around your cloud environment.
Because it should be able to leverage what they have. So Microsoft or AWS, I think it's Microsoft, AWS, Oracle, IBM, and there's one more that I know the DoD cloud contract. Google. So I guess in that sense, it's like, okay, can you just double check
think we're good.
I think part of the challenge is even finally finalizing the goal.
I would enjoy a discussion around some things like this instead of change.
Yeah, it's, you just talk with the people internal and it's just trying to solve the problems, and then you can watch the town halls, but you still don't get to ask the actual questions on your mind.